Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm going to be doing my review for Gotham Knights. I played the PS5 version of the game, which was relatively stable, so yeah, let's get into it. So first off, I'm going to start up with the optimization thing, as it's the most obvious issue with the game. When it was announced, very close to release, Gotham Knights would have been locked at 30 FPS for consoles. I was cautiously optimistic still, as I was only here for the story and the characters, so it didn't really bother me. But honestly, the game runs decently well. I had a few frame drops here and there, and after a while it wasn't really noticeable, but it does get decently bad when you're on the bat cycle going over the bridges. So that's the only issue I have with the whole optimization thing. I played the entire game online, so that could have been a massive part of that as well. So do with that as you will. Now, I just want to talk about the gameplay. It was great. I loved it. It's definitely not the same as the Arkham games, but it's a lot more complex than just the standard button mashing. Fighting mechanics with combos and obviously changing your attacks are a massive part of the game, which always result in either your eventual victory or your defeat, depending on how everything plays out. Enemy types are relatively the same across the different factions and groups, but with the different enemy types, they also have different weapons and all that sort of thing. So it's very different each time, but you kind of get the gist of how to take them down after your first hour or two of play. The stealth mechanic was a little bit hard to deal with at first, purely because I didn't know all the buttons and how everything played out. I was playing it like an Arkham game, not as an RPG, so I did have a little bit of issues at the start, but now I perfectly execute stealth missions the entire time. So it's fairly easy to learn once you get the idea on how the buttons are and what the layout is. Issues with stealth in co-op are decently high. I played the campaign with my brother, and unfortunately, when one of us were found, the other one was also found, regardless of where we were in stealth. So we didn't really get to stay hidden very long if one of us were found. So I hope they fix this, or if it's just a bug. But yeah, it's definitely a bummer. Now I want to talk about customization. The different suits in the game were fantastic and were pretty much awesome in each different variation, depending on like my favorites, where most of them were the Eternal ones or the Beyond skins. So there was a decent like variety of suits that you can get with your crafting, which you can change to various like bits like emblem, cowl, boots, gauntlets, all that sort of stuff. So the only issue I really had was the mod system. That is really hard to get around. I put some mods on my suit for the second half of the game and didn't realize why I was so underleveled until I took those mods off and all the other suits were overly entitled, like massively big in level. So it's a little bit confusing at first, so right now I'm not running any mods just so I can level up my character and then I'll apply everything in later. So that's just how I got around it. Yeah, so just be careful with the mod system. Post-game content is something that a lot of us in the community are trying to ask the devs if we're going to be getting any sort of DLC post-launch. I hope we will, but right now the only thing we are getting post-launch is the Heroic Assault game mode, which we know little to nothing about. It's probably going to be like the court dungeon things, so that's probably the extent. I do hope we're going to get more characters and different case files, because the game offers a lot of replayability depending on how many times you interrogate goons after the story ends. Honestly, if they put in new DLC, it's going to be fantastic, and I really hope they do. As for the story, it was amazing, it was compelling, it was great, and having half of the rogues pop up every once in a while are awesome. It was fun to play around in. The addition to the League of Assassins was great. I did not see that coming with all the trailers. I thought it was just going to be Court of Owls only, but it was a welcomed addition to the story. But unfortunately, the ending for the game was less than ideal. The whole Batman being revived and then killing him again was completely unnecessary and honestly could have been avoided or even written out of the game completely. at this moment, I believe it took away from the game's story and honestly left my brother and I speechless, and we were a bit annoyed when we finished the game. So, apart from that, the story was great. I highly recommend it. But yeah. Gotham Knights has a lot to offer as a standalone Bat Family game without Batman's presence in it throughout the entire game. The mod system needs more explaining, and honestly, the game couldn't be compared to Arkham Knight or even Marvel's Avengers. The finale is something to be desired, but that would be my only piece of criticism on the larger scale. Honestly, I'm happy with the game, my brother's happy with the game, and I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. Personally, I'd pick it up at the current price, but you definitely get your money's worth with the replayability. But if you were to hold off and wait for it on sale, that's perfectly valid as well.